Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Jacob in Wisconsin. We've got Emilio on assignment in New York. We've got Tim on assignment in Milwaukee. I still don't know what the hell that means, Jacob, but I hear people say it on podcasts all the time, so I thought we'd be cool and say that too. What do you think?
Sounds official. I like it.
There you go. I'll tell you what else is official, my man. That's the good folks over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin-based since 92, specializing in Packers tickets. They're Wisconsin's largest ticket source. The office is next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Just click on the link here in the video description. That will send you to theticketking.com, where you can register for free as a customer and go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. Again, that is Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. I'm going to give a shout out to United Bates. Said he used it the other day, getting some Packers tickets. Said it was just phenomenal, seamless, all that good stuff. So thanks for supporting those who support us, Bates. And again, special shout out to Ticket King. We appreciate them supporting the show. So, Jacob, we're going to dive into some of the news and notes kind of coming out of the joint practice. We hit joint practice pretty well. That didn't sound good, did it? We hit the joint practice pretty well. And really it's we can dabble into it a bit. I want to kind of gear up for the game tomorrow. It's going to be a busy day for us. And for those of you who are tuning in here, we're going to be going live for a morning show tomorrow. Then we're going to be doing a pregame show 1 hour before kickoff. And then we're going to be doing a post-game show immediately following the game. All right. It's going to be a late one. I know I'm dreading it, but it should be a good time anyway. So before we dive into kind of some of the storylines leading up to the game tomorrow against Denver, Jacob, what's on your mind here, dude? You got anything right off the top? Just or if not, we can jump right into some of the topics we got lined up, man.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but Bears Twitter is ready to give Mr. Caleb Williams, give him the gold jacket, the green jacket, give him the Hall of Fame trophy, give him the MVP, give him the All-Pro award. He's got for sure 5 Super Bowls locked in. And don't get me wrong, he's looked okay, but again, after what I saw from him the last game, and I mentioned it, I thought he looked pretty good. You brought up a good point of watch his mechanics, though. He just basically is breaking down, running outside the pocket, not really playing within motion. And then I watched, his highlights. It's all him scrambling, breaking the pocket, which, don't get me wrong, he's
good at it.
He's a great athlete. He's phenomenal at what he does, but I don't think that that's going to survive very long in the NFL if that's what you rely on.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because I was on the road back from Knoxville earlier, and I seen Twitter blowing up that Caleb Williams is just, unbelievable. And I went and looked at the stat line, and I think I've got it right here. Yeah, he was 6 for 13 for 75 yards. Didn't even throw a touchdown, didn't throw a pick, of course. His rating was 64.6, and they said, but he had an awesome touchdown run. It was like a 7-yard touchdown run. I'm going, what are we talking about?
And he had a lead blocker. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, he is great about doing that blindside spin move where he peels out, kind of very Aaron Rodgers-esque. But that can only happen so many times. And he was playing against, I believe, backups at this point. I could be wrong, but let's all just pump the brakes on.
Regardless, it's all vanilla. Like, listen, Jordan Love came out and threw 2 passes, one of which was a 65-yard touchdown pass. And we thought that was fun, but this is vanilla defense. They were just simply playing cover one man, and they had a safety matched up on Wicks. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's preseason. Again, I'm not going to tell even Bears fans how to fan, but all I will say is when I was reading Twitter, you would have thought the son of a gun went 10 for 10 for 200 yards and a couple tutters. And yeah. I looked in and I did see the throw crossbody down the sideline. Beautiful pass. That's what Caleb Williams does. Generational arm talent. There's no denying that. But like you were saying, all those moves are being made breaking the pocket. Trust me, NFL defenses are going to have something for that. But they said the same thing about Justin Fields breaking the pocket. So.
You know what I thought? I had a thought a while back, and I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but it's to rate what Nostalgic is saying here. I don't know if you ever watched or looked into Tyson Bagent very much. Bagent. I think, one, he's a heck of a locker room guy. He's really he's like cocky and humble at the same time. He just seems kind of more like a bro. He's kind of like a California surfer bro type leader.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he at some point takes over and is a way better quarterback than Caleb Williams. I watch the kid. He's really athletic. He's more of like a gamer, I feel like. I just personally really like him, and he's been really he's a workout freak. So
Yeah.
if I was the Bears organization, well, obviously they're gonna be fluffing Caleb until the cows come home. But
see, these were the numbers I was expecting, judging by Twitter's reaction. If you had told me Caleb Williams went 7 of 8 for 87 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, I'd go, damn, that's a good day at the office right there, boys. I looked at the box score. That's Tyson Bagent, however you say his name. That's Tyson Bagent's numbers. Caleb Williams was 6 of 13 for 75 yards. He had how many more passes? 5 more passes, 1 less completion, and 12 less yards, 2 less touchdowns. It's like, what are we even doing here, man? But again, even with those numbers not being great for Caleb Williams, that doesn't mean he's going to be a bad quarterback. It's the preseason, right? So, again, that just cracked me up, man. That I'm completely on board with you about Tyson Bagent as far as like he played better than Caleb. If he does get an opportunity, Jacob, it's not going to be in Chicago because they are going to do exactly the same thing they did with Justin Fields, the same thing they did with Mitch Trubisky. They're going to give him every opportunity to justify that pick. Hey, we were right in our assessment type thing. And again, no one has ever argued that Caleb Williams doesn't have unbelievable arm talent. It's up here is what I'm saying. When things go awry, how is he going to respond? When you get a quarter of the way through the season, even if he lights it up the first 4 games of the season, when you get a quarter of the way through and people start looking at that 4-game saturation and go, okay, you know what? He likes to look at his first read and then roll left. Well, guess what you can do? You can trigger a contain on that backside, focus on taking away his number 1 read, and now you're going to force him to get the 2 and 3 play within the pocket. Because I'm telling you, once somebody puts their face mask in that dude's sternum, rolling out left like that, he's going to think twice about it. Now, the question is he mentally tough enough to handle that once things kind of, like I said, go bad for him? So that's Greg Cosell 101 is like he said it about Jordan Love last year. He said Jordan Love has all the arm talent you need to be a great NFL quarterback. The question is he going to be the same guy week in and week out when things don't go right? Is he going to be able to adjust and be able to handle the responsibility of leading the franchise, of leading the team when things aren't going good and having to adjust on the fly? Those are the things that really, truly matter. But, yeah. So, again, it's not a Chicago Bears podcast, but I will say this. We're going to talk about this stuff because it does matter. I know there's a couple other podcasters that if you were to tweet anything about another NFC North quarterback, it's who cares? Who cares? I care because it matters. It matters within your division, and we're going to keep our finger on the pulse there moving forward. And I'm one of these nerds that I like to watch the tape of the team coming up and go, all right, what are they doing well right now? I won't do a 4-game saturation, but I'll typically go 1 or 2 games, TV cut up copy. Let's get through all the offensive snaps type thing. But yeah, that stuff, that drives me crazy when people are like, you're not allowed to even focus on an opponent. What are we talking about here? Let's continue to not understand the game of football. But Respect Orange says, here we go. If you want to crown him, then crown his ass. But the Bears are who we thought they were. We don't have that soundbite anymore, Respect Oranges, but I respect you for bringing it up, brother. Rest in peace, Denny Green, for sure. But it's funny that you brought that up, Jacob, because that was something I wanted to hit on. So we were definitely thinking alike there in that regard. A couple other things came down the pike. I thought this was cool at Bronco, the joint practice with the Packers and the Broncos. You see Payton Manning with Jordan Love. I want to correct something I said on the previous show. I said I thought Payton was part owner of the team. There was rumors of that for a while. That seems to be not to be the case. He is what they refer to as an ambassador. He lives in Denver. He's got a home in Denver, and he's kind of like one of those people that are helping the franchise consistently as far as working with them on advice, things like that. So he's an ambassador of the team, which is kind of weird because to the best of my knowledge, Jacob, he doesn't do that with the Colts. So it kind of shows you he took a liking to the Broncos over the Colts, seeing how things ended there. So, but yeah, I thought it was cool that Jordan Love was kind of pictured here with the sheriff Payton Manning, and hopefully he's picking his brain. This is 2 years in a row this has happened too. You notice that, Jacob? Last training camp, they spent some time together too.
Yeah, I did notice that. And I don't know if there's any, indication that helped Jordan Love, but it definitely can't hurt. Talking to one of the greatest of all time quarterbacks, I'm sure that even just simple, and Peyton was such a mechanic and such obviously a pocket quarterback, but he was more of just like a wizard, because I think he was limited with his physical skill set for most of his career, especially towards the end. So he had to be kind of a chess player, especially pre-snap. I don't think anybody has ever been as good as pre-snap reads as Peyton has been. So that right there, if he could instill one thing, I wouldn't ask for Peyton's arm strength. I wouldn't ask for his accuracy. I definitely wouldn't ask for his mobility. I would ask for the pre-snap, anything pre-snap diagnosing. If he could instill that kind of mental capacity, just like a floppy disk, put it into Jordan and download it, that'd be cool. I'd like that.
He was always able to do that, always. His pre-snap, and again, the reason that Bill Belichick had his number, we've explained it several times on the show, was because Bill studied enough of his tape to go, hey, look, he likes to have his adjustments in by this time. So let's show a shell coverage. Let's show the same exact defensive look until there's 8 seconds left on the play clock, whatever that number was that Bill came up with. Now let's move into our defense. So he'd come to the line, read it, all right, check to this, check to that. Then he'd get everything set, get ready for his hard counts to prepare for the snap at 2 or 3 seconds, and Bill would shift into his actual defense, and nobody was where Peyton thought they were. So that was early in his career. You guys remember in the early 2000s where the Patriots, it seemed like every year it was Patriots, Colts in the playoffs, and they could never beat the Patriots. That, and they were roughhousing the receivers at the line of scrimmage, which, just like many rules that have been implemented in the NFL since Belichick's reign, they had to create the new, they had to enforce the new 5-yard chuck rule. Like, you're not allowed to touch them after 5 yards, because they were just roughing Marvin Harrison up. It was a thing to see. You ever get a chance, go back and watch those playoff games, man. They were dandies. So here you had Wes Hikowitz tweeted this out after practice. Preston Smith signing autographs after the joint practice. Beautiful day in Denver is what Wes said. Preston Smith's just one of those dudes. Jacob, he's taking a pay cut, 2 years in a row now? I think he's one of the more underappreciated Packers on the team. He's a guy who plays pretty well against the run. Doesn't have as high of a pressure rate as you would want, but also he was asked to drop into coverage from time to time. It seemed like they leaned on him dropping into coverage in the outside linebacker spot as opposed to Gary, and I definitely agree with that game planning. But Preston Smith, man, I've got a time machine. I just came back from 2025. He took another pay cut, or he's not on the Packers, because that's just how the roster, the contract's set up. I think he wants to end his career being a Packer. But what do you think about Preston and his reign as far as the bang for the buck that we've gotten for that dude since we signed him in free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's been honestly great. The return on investment for him specifically has been, I think, well worth it. Even you go back to the days when it was him and Za'Darius, that was pretty crazy, thinking that we had Rashawn Gary as our third stringer. And then he kind of progressed into being just a really steady Eddie starter. We talked about how he's a guy that doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. I know he's fluctuated a little bit with his PFF grades here and there, but you kind of know that you have a consistent floor with him. And I really do think that this year there's a possibility that he could break the top off of his game, and we could see more of a type of a ceiling, maybe one of his highest PFF graded games. We've talked about too. He has never played in a 4-3. Is that right? Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, he's always been in a 34.
Even going back to Washington. Yeah. So, just having him put his hand in the dirt with less responsibilities, with less maybe him having to worry about containment, or like you said, more coverage, or any sort of, running back splitting out or anything like that. He could, I think, take a big, crazy step. And that is a good point, that I don't want to look ahead too far and say he's going to be here or there, but just because of the rotation and the young groups coming up behind him of Enigbare, my boy Brenton Cox, and obviously Alvien, I think that he's going to have to play pretty lights out for him to, I think, be around in 2025. But I hope that's a problem it's a good problem to have once we come to it. So
yeah, definitely. So again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, obviously. But I could see him, if he performs this year like he did last year, I could see the Packers converting some more salary to signing bonus, giving him a little more guaranteed money, but him taking an overall pay cut and being here next year as well. But the reality is they are getting LVN ready to kind of take over that opposite spot from Gary, right? So we'll see, though, man. We'll see. Let's see what else we got here as far as on tap. A couple things I came across. Thought this was cool. Ben, you got to be careful with that last name. Ben Fox, top 5 NFL teams against the spread the last 5 seasons. So this is obviously during Matt LaFleur's reign as head coach for the Packers. The Green Bay Packers they have the best record against the spread in the entire NFL at 53-37. Now, the way that I interpret this statistic here, Jacob, is this is how many times they have basically beat the spread. So when they're the underdog, right? Well, I guess the spread overall. So this doesn't necessarily mean they won, right? This is they've covered in the spread, or whether they're the underdog or the favorite there as well. 53-37. Next to them is the Miami Dolphins, 49-35-1. Then the Detroit Lions at 50-36. The Bengals at 49-36. I mean, pretty cool, man, that they're leading by four wins there against the spread in the last 5 seasons. And again, I know not everybody's gambling nuts, but I think that stuff really matters. It shows how LaFleur gets his team ready. It's just very seldom the Packers get blown out of a game. You know what I mean, Jacob?
Yeah, and now, when I first saw that stat, I was like, man, that kind of blows my mind. But now that I think about it, how many times have we sat here getting ready for game prep and been like, the Packers are not getting this point or that point, the spread's here, the spread's there. Like, what, I've scratched my head multiple times. I know that we've done it where, for whatever reason, I mean, aren't the Bears getting like 2 points even going into next year kind of thing? So, like, you never know exactly where Vegas's head's at. But I do constantly remember, like you just said, it's very rare that we get blown out. If anything, Packer fans know that if we'll drag it out to the very end and then get heartbroken within, the last 4 seconds of the game kind of thing. That's more of our MO. It's very seldom that I remember, like, taking my jersey off in the second quarter and hanging the hat up and being like, well, that's going to do it for today.
Right. Yep.
So,
and that's all you can ask for as a fan, is just to have a shot, right? To be in the game. Season in, season out is just really, I know there's been a big debate in the past. People say, well, I would rather have a one Super Bowl ring every 5 years and just be horrible those years in between. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know, man. That's a miserable way to fan too. I mean, I'm all about Super Bowls over everything else, but the thought of winning 2 or 3 games for 4 years, then you win a Super Bowl and then you go right back to sucking. We don't like that, Jan. You know what I'm saying? That would really suck. So, all right, this was cool. Obviously, key free agent addition this year. Found this on the new NFL Pro website. If you guys are members of the old Game Pass, they've got a premium and a pro now, which is really cool. A lot of all 22 mixed in with next gen stats. But this was one of the leading topics for the Packers. It said the Packers are signing former Giants safety Xavier McKinney on a 4-year deal worth $68 million. Obviously, that was the key free agent signing this year. It says McKinney forced a tight window on a league-leading 30.8% of his targets when aligned as a safety last season, minimum of 20 targets. McKinney will join a Packers team that forced a tight window on just 12.4% of pass attempts in 2023, third lowest in the NFL. So you could tell, I know people like to roll their eyes at next-gen stats, PFF grades, things like that, but it almost always happens, Jacob. When the Packers make a signing or they make a move, you look at some of these next-gen stats and go, that's probably what they were focused on right there. Because essentially what it means to me, and I could be wrong, it means McKinney is always in the right spot to make it a difficult throw, no matter who he's covering, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that might translate a lot more to, first downs, which equates to wins and losses, I think, more than people would really realize. And he's pretty far and away better than the next player, so I think that's pretty impressive. And we've already seen flashes of what McKinney can do, and whoever is in that opposite safety position, whether it be Williams, Bullard, even Oladapo, I think that just knowing that we have a guy like X is kind of being that, he's the main dude. I would argue that even if he doesn't have the green dot, he's almost kind of that leader of the defense. And we have not had that kind of shutdown safety in a long time. I would argue probably. So I saw another random cut of, it was like a spliced together super cut of Leroy Butler and Charles Woodson and then Nick Collins. And, like we talked about too, like Adrian Amos had some decent years in there, some really decent, solid years, but I don't think he was ever considered a top 10 safety in the league. I don't think people would ever put that kind of respect on his name, even if he had the grades. I think definitely people would, without a doubt, consider Xavier McKinney at least the top 3. And then if I'm not mistaken, didn't Justin Simons just sign with Atlanta? So Atlanta's going to have a pretty stout safety group there. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Justin Simmons, I think he's a good safety. It's just when you look at here recently, I feel like he's on the downside, but he's definitely better than what they had. But I agree. I think Atlanta they're doing good things. It's just one of the problems I have with Atlanta is I feel like they have a culture issue, and it always starts at the top. I mean, you look how that front office is put together. I mean, I can't get over the fact that Bill Belichick essentially told them, we don't have to rip it all down for him to be the head coach. And they still said, we're okay. And it tells me that there is a lot of people in that front office that they don't want Belichick looking over their shoulders. So that can be a little bit, I don't know, a little bit interesting there for sure. So, all right, let's see here. Let's move along to, well, first of all, I do want to mention this. Xavier McKinney, I think he had the best pass defense grade according to PFF. Understand these are two different advanced metrics or analytics, if you want to call it that, with Next Gen Stats and that top window rate of 30.8%. It's pretty cool to see Next Gen Stats has a key statistic in coverage for him, and then PFF is real high on him. For all those haters of PFF, it just seems like I said, there's always stuff that you can point to and go, I don't know, man, I think they're on something over there. So, but pretty cool that he's even higher than Jesse Bates, Kyle Hamilton as well, because Kyle Hamilton's an absolute dog, man. Jordan Fuller's a good player too, don't get me wrong, but that's significantly higher than Kyle Hamilton, a little over 5% higher as far as forcing that top window. I'm excited to see what Xavier McKinney does this year. Moving along here.
Just real quick, Reef in the chat said that he's got great hands, being X, that he's really underrated, that he can play offense. I hope that's true, man, because like we talked about, we had so many dropped interceptions, and I know Hafley's been emphasizing that too. So,
yeah. Now, every aspect of his game is better than Darnell Savage. There's no two ways about it. And it's better than Anthony Johnson Jr., who was predominantly our safety alongside Darnell Savage last year. I mean, you throw in whether it's Bullard or Evan Williams, who they both seem like they're going to be able to perform better than Anthony Johnson Jr. The secondary is going to be completely revamped. And, obviously they're not going to show much in the preseason, but I'm excited to see him week 1 for sure. Another player I'm excited to see, 33rd team actually tweeted this out, one player to keep an eye on for all 32 teams this preseason. All right. And this is from, Ari Mirov of My Sports Update. Okay. The player that they picked for the Packers, Lucas Van Ness, defensive end. And I think it's just so fitting because that dude, he's had a good camp, but what he did in the preseason the other day, I should say, it really, really jumped off the screen. Those are the things you want to key in on preseason. Like, it's hard to judge the quarterbacks because everything's so vanilla, but those one-on-one matchups, when you see someone consistently winning their matchup battle, it's a, hey, look at me, this dude might be the real deal this year. The fact that Lucas Van Ness is that player listed for the Packers here, man, you can never have too many pass rushers. I'll tell you someone else that kind of caught me off guard when I was looking at some of the next-gen stats as far as pressure rate was Kingsley Enagbare. Was like at 15%. He was higher than Preston Smith. He was higher than Kenny Clark. I think he was even higher than Devontae Wyatt. I think he was only second to, as far as pass rushers, to Rashawn Gary. So don't sleep on Kingsley Enagbare, seeing that he's ready to go here come week 1 as well. But Lucas Van Ness in that first preseason game, only 13 pass rush snaps, right? 1 sack, 4 pressures. That's a 30.8% pass rush win rate. Keep in mind that Rashawn Gary, and these are kind of the things you want to draw the parallel and comparison to. I believe Rashawn Gary led the Packers last year in like an 17 or 18% pressure rate. Lucas Van Ness in the first game, 30.8%. Now these are one of these players tomorrow night during the game. This is one of the guys you want to watch. right, Jake? So what do you think about LVN? And you said G's probably because looking at that arm. What?
Bro, that dude, he looks like he eats just protein bars in the middle of the night, wakes up, just eats nails. He does. He looks like the Terminator. That's what Respect Orange just says there. Yeah, so for those of you that maybe don't really understand pass rush win rate, typically Ryan loves that statistic. I love it too for pass rushers. Think that he says it basically like your top run-of-the-mill baseline decent player would be like a 10% would be sufficeable. Not great, not good. If anything, it's probably something you want to turn on the bottom of your roster, but you want at least 10% pass rush win rate. When you get to be like 13, 14, 15, that's like you're pretty darn good. Anything above 15, like I think for the season, like you just said, 18, 17, 19% is crazy. Anything in the 20s, I believe like that's where your JJ Watts were consistently. I think Za'Darius, when he had that crazy good year, he was in around low 20s, if I'm not mistaken. But like Gary seems to be right around that, 18, 19. To have 30%, I mean, obviously it's 13 snaps. And if you extend that over the whole season or a whole game, who knows what the numbers would look like. But if that's any indication of what his capabilities are, I mean, can you imagine, just to be fun about, if he just even finished the year with a 25% pass rush win rate and he had 200 snaps, 300 snaps, whatever it was, like that dude, you'd have to think that the pressures alone would be pretty astronomical and the sack rates will probably follow. I'd rather have, like we've talked about, I want to see the pressures because that's going to lead to, I think, more disruptive plays, more interceptions down the field. And I just really think that Hafley is really gearing this defense to be an absolute turnover monster. And if he can take that step, if LVN and Kingsley Enagbare, those are the two guys that if they do take that crazy step, that rotation at the end is just lethal.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at this is next gen stats pressure rate from last year. Now you want to filter out the noise here, which is Jair, Rudy Ford, Jonathan Owens, Keyshawn Nixon, Isaiah McDuffie, even because when you fire those blitzes, you're trying to bring a free hat, and those numbers are going to be significantly higher, along with Devondre Campbell. So Quay Walker is one that from time to time we would line him up on the weak side line of scrimmage and just blitz him. That one holds a little truer than the others, but you still got to throw it out because he's more of a stack backer trying to catch them in like a green dog blitz. So Quay Walker, quarterback pressure rate. Okay, so this is the rate in which they put pressure on the quarterback. Quay Walker 18.3%, Rashawn Gary 17.4%, Preston Smith 11.2%. So I was wrong on that. Hold up, I think there's something I gotta click here because I did it earlier. If I could find it, I may be on a different screen. There was something I clicked earlier to kind of filter out some of the noise, and right here, maybe it was that possibly. But I know that Kingsley Enagbare popped up there. Now he's up there, ain't he? Yeah. Okay. So let's see if that fixed it. So when you look at the pressure rate here now, you'll notice Kingsley Enagbare at 15.1% right there. So it's Quay Walker 18.3. Then you've got Kingsley Enagbare. Get it in here a little closer so y'all can actually see it. Kingsley Enagbare at 15.1%. Devontae White, 14.8%. Preston Smith, 11.2%. Kenny Clark, 11.1%. Kobe Wooden at 10.7%. That surprised me. He had a higher pressure rate than Carl Brooks. Look at LVN's, 8.5%. Now think about what he's doing already this year. If he takes that step forward, and let's say he jumps up close to Devontae White, somewhere, 14, 15%. That production mixed with Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard, Evan Williams on the backside, a healthy Eric Stokes. I'm telling you, man, pressure pick, coverage sack, it's coming. I think all this stuff, the way they reconstructed this defense is going to play a huge role in whether the Packers hit that ceiling of whether it's 12, 13 wins or they hover around the floor, which is somewhere around 9, I would imagine. So anything catch you off guard there as far as the quarterback pressure rate? That Kingsley Enagbare, man, that made me grin. I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, I would say that if you look at this list, I expect roughly I shouldn't say the totals, but I expect Gary to be towards the top, Kingsley, Devontae Wyatt, Preston. But if you can get any sort of extended performance or, any kind of higher numbers out of Brooks and out of Van Ness, just, kick those guys up with Van Ness's case, I'd like to see him increase that by 8 to 10%. If that's the case, then we have a solid group. If you have a group of like 5 or 6 guys that are all plus 15% pass rush win rate, that's when you start getting to be a little bit lethal, because no matter how many guys are gassed, if you can rotate in players that are just as deadly as most people's starters, like that's pretty intense, especially too, like we're talking DNs, but look inside, we're talking Devontae Wyatt is also, if Wyatt and Kenny Clark can get back to, 15% for Wyatt would be insane if he's doing that. Same with Kenny Clark. And, Slayton's down there pulling in a respectable 5.6%. But honestly, I've seen more pop out of him this year, so I wouldn't be surprised, dude, if he could even be around 8 to 9%. That takes, leaps and bounds for him.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that sticks out to me with Quay Walker in that 18.3%, he only blitzed. I think that's the blitz number right there. Come on. Can we not go up? So blitz percentage. So he only blitzed 14.9% of the time and had an 18.3% quarterback pressure rate. Here's the thing with Quay's game, and we're now deep into this, right? We're what, 2 years in, 2 full years. This will be the 3rd year for Quay. So what he does well is pass coverage. He doesn't play the ball well from a skill point set, like a skill set point, like picking the ball off. He doesn't have very good hands. Understandable, he's a linebacker. But as far as his coverage ability, being in the right place and having the physical tools to, like, I remember last year, it might have been against the Bears or maybe the Vikings, he covered a wheel route, stride for stride. And it's like, that dude can freaking cover. His game, his strong points is coverage and blitzing the quarterback. His weak point is run fits. His run fit and his hesitation in the run game is where he kind of takes a step back. So I think it should be one of those things that we maybe fire a Mike blitz, even if you're in a base 4-3. Sometimes you want to bring a 5-man pressure, and you can do that with like a cover 1 instinct where you don't have a hole or a rat player playing that underneath the zone, or you don't have a robber from up top. That allows you to just go man across the board, 5-man rush, single high safety patrolling the center of the field. If you approach it that way, I could see situations where you're in your 4-3 defense that you go with that wide look we've been talking about, where you're not necessarily playing over or under, but you've got those interior defensive tackles both at like a 3 to a 4 eye tech. If you do that and you walk Quay up into that A gap and blitz him, I'm telling you, man, the numbers suggest, hey, let's do that occasionally from the Mike position. That way he's still wearing the green dot and you're still utilizing him in those Tampa 2 coverages and using his ability to be able to play that cover linebacker position. So I'm excited to see what Quay does this year. And again, Campanile, you can see every time we show a practice, some kind of practice footage, Jacob, Coach Campanile is right there with Quay every single time, it seems like. So need to probably get him a little more involved in the pass rush, just playing aggressive, whether it's in the pass and dropping back and actually covering guys in man coverage or firing off the line of scrimmage after the quarterback. You got to get him more involved that way. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds. Is it okay if I go ahead and close this out? Anything else you want to see here?
Yeah, just real quick. It is encouraging. Obviously, we talked about how the linebackers got to take that number with a grain of salt because a lot of times they're just sending them. But hey, to have Wilson up there at number 2 at 44% and to see Isaiah McDuffie, it does show with him, we could have, that could be our starting 3, Wilson, McDuffie, and Quay. And they've all shown that if we want to send them, they know what to do. You add in the possibilities of any sort of weird, unique blitz packages, whether that be with our talented HMM group at safety or even the couple rookies that we haven't really talked about at all because of the injuries that they've had, is Cooper and Hopper. So once they're back and ready and firing on all cylinders, who knows how lethal that group can be, especially if we decide to, like you just said, start blitzing them a little more, which I hope we do.
If McDuffie ends up being the starting linebacker alongside Quay Walker, because Edgerrin Cooper's kind of a little slow to the party with the injuries, I'm telling you, man, I think we're going to look up a few games into the season and go, damn, Isaiah McDuffie's a starting linebacker, because he's going to be familiar with this defense. He was there, I think his last year in college was Halfley's first year at Boston College, maybe. So they have a little bit of familiarity there in that regard. So, yeah, I'm with you, dude. I think this is just a great foundation for building a good defense. Get this year 1 under your belt in this system, and say, all right, now who belongs, who doesn't, and let's add just another piece or two to the pot here, and we're good to go. So, all right, man. So we covered all that. Let's talk some camp battles. You want to? We're at the 34-minute mark. If you guys and gals would hit that like button for us, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us here. Every time you hit that like on YouTube or Rumble, it helps boost the algorithm, help other Packer fans find the channel and find the content. Hate asking, but I really, really appreciate it if you do that. And if you like this kind of content, feel free to sub to the channel. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us here. So Bill Huber put an article out. I love Bill Huber's camp coverage, man, because it's just like, it seems like every few days he takes a step back, deep breath. All right, now what do the camp battles look like? So this was the tweet he put out. He said, in 10 days, the Packers will have to cut their roster to 53 players. Here's an updated look at the big roster battles ahead of Sunday night's game at Denver and the practice and game next week against Baltimore. So pretty wild. We're 10 days away from getting down to the 53-man roster, Jacob. That's just, it's mind-boggling.
Dude, I remember when we were getting into the beginning of the offseason and we were trying to talk about, like, what are we going to do as far as coverage? And we'll have to maybe do about – remember when we thought we were going to be doing a ton of history segments?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we've done
Never
one.
had time. We didn't have time.
I don't think we did one single one. It went so fast.
Yeah, it's wild, man. So with his article, starting with quarterbacks, and we'll just kind of rattle through this, guys. Make sure you go give Bill Huber a follow, a retweet, all that good stuff. We appreciate the work he does. It's just phenomenal. So he's just kind of giving you an update. Where were we? Where are we now? He said it was Sean Clifford versus Michael Pratt. It's still Sean Clifford versus Michael Pratt. Said Clifford entered training camp with an enormous lead in this battle, but his practice field mistakes have allowed Pratt to thrust himself into the mix. A 7th-round pick, Pratt has been steady throughout the summer. The preseason games against the Broncos on Sunday, which Clifford will start, and Baltimore Ravens next Saturday will go a long way towards determining who will back up Jordan Love. So this is a true battle for the backup quarterback spot. If you had to pick right now, Jacob, who do you feel like's leading that battle as far as Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt?
My heart tells me Pratt. My head tells me Clifford.
That's very well said, man. Very well said. I think that's where I'm at. Like I said, I think I would pick Michael Pratt, but I think the coaching staff still likes the fact that Sean Clifford has that extra experience. So, all right, moving on to the next position here. Running backs. And again, I'm not going to read the entire article. I'll let you guys and gals do that. Running backs, it says it was A.J. Dillon versus Marshawn Lloyd to be the number 2 back. Now it's Emmanuel Wilson pushing for a roster spot /row. I looked up on Next Gen Stats too. I didn't realize. Did you know that Emmanuel Wilson actually led the Packers last year, the running back room in yards per carry? Like, he was better than Aaron Jones. That blew me away. I want to say it was like at 6.1 yards per carry.
Was there a minimum snap count?
What's that?
Was there a minimum snap count?
Yeah, there was, I'm sure. Let me see if I can pull up SIS, and I'll actually give you the exact number. But
I mean, that doesn't surprise me, to be honest. We talked about it. I've been on record saying that I've had my issues with Mr. A.J. Dillon and how I just, in my opinion, I think I've seen all I need to see as far as what he brings to the table. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, I've seen exactly what Emmanuel Wilson just consistently brings to the table in a good way of really overplaying anytime, any situation, whether it be a preseason game, coming in to clean up work. There was a few snaps I remember he came in when Jones did miss a few of those games, and I just, every time I saw him, I went, yep, there's Emmanuel Wilson, steady Eddie, overperforming, and every single time we ask him to do anything. We did mention recently, Tim, I think, brought it up that, is there something that's really lacking in his game that the Packers coaches just trust A.J. Dillon, whether that be in pass protection more? That's basically the biggest one I can think about. Or maybe just knowing that, like you just talked about with Clifford, knowing the playbook just in and out better than Pratt. If that's a big determining factor, then I'd have to imagine A.J. Dillon has the same kind of upper hand on Wilson. But he seems like a smart kid. He seems like a sponge, and I can't emphasize enough, anything we've asked him to do, he over exceeds what I would expect from him. So,
yeah, if you were to try to focus on the positive for A.J. Dillon, he was really effective in the passing game last year. Like, he caught the ball out of the backfield really well. He ran the ball like Dookie. There's no two ways about it. But as far as yards per carry, yards per attempt last year, The team leader was Jaden Reed at 10.8 yards per attempt on 11 attempts. Emmanuel Wilson, 6.1 yards per attempt, only 14 attempts, though. Okay. Jordan Love, 4.9 yards per attempt. He had 50 rushes. Aaron Jones, 4.6 yards per attempt. I think that's the first time he dipped under 5 last year. So that's interesting. Patrick Taylor, 4.4. And then A.J. Dillon at 3.4. Now, what's really interesting about these numbers, this is on SIS, designed gap percentage, meaning how many times they actually ran to the gap in which the play was designed to hit, okay? Emmanuel Wilson was at 50%. So 50% of the time, he hit the gap the play was designed to hit, which means half of the time he said, nope, ain't there, I'm making something happen. Granted, only 14 attempts. Aaron Jones was 57%. So 57% of the time, Aaron Jones hit the gap the play was designed for. The other, 43% of the time, he was bouncing it out and making something happen. A.J. Dillon, 60.1%, Jacob. So here's where the play's designed to go. That's where I'm going, hell or high water, 60% of the time.
That kind of makes sense.
It does. It does.
That's exactly what, my biggest gripe and our biggest gripe has been that he looks like he gets the ball and he just, I gotta go this way. Can't go that way. Gotta go this way. It's like, dude.
And the thing that sticks out on tape to me is he stops his feet.
Yes.
He constantly stops his feet. Emmanuel Wilson, Aaron Jones, even Patrick Taylor, the feet kept moving. They kept moving. You're working through the garbage to try to make something happen, you know. Respect Orange says Lloyd could start on IR and we could get a longer look at Wilson. I think there's a decent chance for that because hammies, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it last year, right? I mean, hamstrings are nothing to mess with. But as far as this article from Bill Huber, he says there's little doubt Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, and Marshawn Lloyd will make the roster. Jacobs is the clear-cut number 1 back. Dillon has immense value in the passing game, and the explosive Lloyd has too much upside as a third-round pick. The question is whether Wilson, who is on his way to another strong preseason, can break through. Lloyd's hamstring injury might open the door for Wilson to make it by default, but taking a long-term view, is there room on the roster for all 4 players? So, again, we don't want to read the entire article, but for me, if Lloyd is healthy, I would prefer Wilson over Dillon. I'm to that point now. Now, again, you got to be prepared that the passing game might take a little bit of a dip, but how many times are you going to – I don't see Emmanuel Wilson as this passing game specialist, this third down back, if you will, right? I don't see it being a situation like, all right, it's 3rd and 7, let's get a good pass catching back in there. Wilson hit the field. I think Wilson is that spell back. When you need a breather, throw him in there and let him make some stuff happen, get him back out of the game. When you put AJ in there, the reality is he's every single – somebody said the other day in the chat that his yards per carry is still like over 4. It is. But every year his yards per carry has declined. And now we're under 4. We're like whatever it was, 3 point, whatever we said last year. What was it? 3.4 yards.
3.4. Oof. Okay.
That's ugly. So
and we may be sleeping on the fact too that they've talked about how they really want to incorporate Josh Jacobs into the passing game, specifically as a pass catching running back, something that he didn't almost ever do in Vegas. I believe it was some crazy stat like he had 4 attempted passes or catches thrown his way out of the backfield. Like they just never used him, and he loved doing it in Alabama. And apparently the guy's got really sticky hands. So I could see a situation like you just talked about where Wilson's just more of that spell back, and I would even consider Jacobs, whereas, we used to have our quote unquote third down backs, whether that be a Jones or a Kylan Hill or more of like a scat back type that could swing out and catch the ball. I could see Jacobs now still being that back, and maybe we spell him on 2nd down with Wilson kind of thing, bring Jacobs back in that 3rd down situation. But
I could see that. All right, receivers can't battle. It says was the pecking order. We were saying, all right, we know who our receivers are. Malik Heath's making the roster, right? All right, what's the pecking order of the receivers? Now it's saying Grant DeBose versus Bo Melton versus Malik Heath for the final roster spot or spots. I think they'll keep 2 of those 3. Question is, who are they going to keep? It says there was no reason not to think the Packers would roll into this season with Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavion Wicks, Bo Melton, and Malik Heath as their 6 receivers. The emergence the last couple weeks by DeBose has changed the dynamic. At this point, it's going to be hard to keep him off the 53, though it's not as if Melton and Heath aren't worthy. Quote, honestly, I didn't want to be in the same spot I was last year, DuBose said of spending his rookie season on the practice squad. Quote, I came into this offseason, I wanted to put everything I had into my craft and just keep developing, keep getting better. Like I said, I didn't want to be in the same position as I was last year. I wanted to at least give myself a chance to make this squad. That was really just the mindset. Don't be stuck in the same place. Dude, you could tell, man, he plays hard. That's another player to watch tomorrow night. When Michael Pratt and Sean Clifford, that little camp battle that's going to happen tomorrow before our eyes, Grant DuBose is another player. It's like, I want that dude to flash because I personally, what we've seen early this year, and it is early, he may disappear the rest of the preseason. We go, I come away going, give me Malik Heath. But if he does what he did last week and continues to impress during camp practices, I think that's my guy, man. Not over Bo yet. Not over Bo. Bo was really good last year in that kind of that backup role. But I think he, in my opinion, he is passing Heath currently. It's just give me one more good game like that, and okay, I feel comfortable. How do you feel about DuBose over Heath, or do you even think that those two guys are over Bo, man?
Well, and we talked about the NFL stands for not for long. And that is so true because all of a sudden, from the end of last year, I'm guilty of this too. I said for sure, Bo Melton's the man. Malik Heath is amazing. We get like 2 weeks of practice, and all of a sudden we're like, Grant DuBose, get him in. Malik Heath, you're out of here. Even talks of Bo Melton had such a bad game, that one game that people like even now in this article they're talking he's also on the bubble as well. So it's a unique situation, man. You can have literally one bad week in this industry and you can be on the chopping block, especially at this point of the season. Obviously it's a little different when you're mid-season and you've already kind of made it through certain cuts, but I think there's a situation where we still have all these guys on the squad, whether that means some of them are on the practice squad or the pup or whatever the thing is, whatever chess game that we have to make happen. If you had to pick one of the three to clear waivers, I'd probably still say I'd think Grant DuBose would be my best pick to clear waivers.
That's a good point. That's a good point because you have no regular season game tape on him, right? That's a great point. I haven't really looked at it from that angle. For me, I thought for sure you were going to say Malik Heath, but you're right, man. There was plenty of game tape last year where you're like, hey, this dude can play at this level. So good stuff, man. It's going to be fun watching that receiver room tomorrow, though. All right, up next, let's see, tight ends. It was Ben Sims versus Tyler Davis. Now it's Ben Sims versus Tyler Davis. So that's what they're saying. It says, while first-year player Joe Wilson has had a solid stretch of practices and should merit a spot on the practice squad, nothing has really changed in the race for the 53. Sims has had a strong training camp on offense, including 3 explosive catches at practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. Those were big-time plays for a player who made his mark as a blocker last year. So, Jacob, if we break camp with 3 and you got to choose between Ben Sims and Tyler Davis, I think we would all agree Joe Wilson's probably going to be a practice squad guy that's going to get elevated from time to time. How do you feel about that matchup there? Who are you taking, Ben Sims or Tyler Davis? Who are you taking? Not who do you think the coaching staff's taking? Let me put it that way.
Ah, boy. If it's me, I would take Sims, but I think that Tyler Davis definitely is a coach favorite, and I think that the coaches see him as being a more necessary part of what they want to do structurally within their offense. Like he's definitely an unsung hero type, a cog, lunch pail, doesn't get a lot of glory. He's not going to be flashy, but I think he's somebody that Matt LaFleur just for whatever reason told him to do something a certain way. And Tyler Davis just seems like he's clicked with what LaFleur wants of him. So I think that he will probably get the nod over Sims. I like what Joel Wilson's done, though. I think that he has a lot of hope in the future. Definitely make the practice squad, and then who knows in the next year or two if he makes the squad, that'd be cool.
Yeah, for me, I would prefer Ben Sims, but you can't minimize Tyler Davis' special teams ability. Ben Sims just impressed the hell out of me last year. I remember when we signed him too. You were all excited because you were like, "Hey man, let's look at the numbers." We broke down some of the measurables and stuff. And I remember kind of thinking to myself, he probably ain't going to be here long, Jacob. I remember thinking that. here he is. Now he's potentially the number 3 tight end on the roster. So that's another matchup to kind of watch tomorrow night as well. Offensive line. The storyline was Jordan Morgan versus everybody, including Sean Ryan. Now it's Jordan Morgan versus Sean Ryan. So it's really been narrowed down now to as far as who's going to play right guard. But more specifically, is it going to be Sean Ryan or Jordan Morgan? I think as long as Jordan Morgan doesn't take a step back from the shoulder injury and he shows everything that we've already seen, then I honestly think that it's pretty much a slam dunk. Jordan Morgan's going to beat Sean Ryan there. I think Sean Ryan will be on the roster. And I will tell you this, I know Matt LaFleur made some comments about his conditioning, and that's a big thing because if the coach makes a public statement in the press about your conditioning, there's trust issues there. And if you don't believe me, go listen to Brian Bulaga and Mark Tauscher talk about it. That's a big part of being an offensive line at the NFL level is your coach is having full trust that you're taking this as serious as you possibly can. But I don't see any chance of Sean Ryan not making the roster personally. They love his tape. That's what's crazy. Bulaga was really taken back by the fact that LaFleur said that because he's like, man, his tape has looked really good this offseason. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? Jordan Morgan versus Sean Ryan. I want Jordan Morgan at right guard. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I just want the best 5. So whatever that has to be. Obviously, I'd like for Jordan Morgan to be a starter just so we can quiet all the haters and all the people that talking about how blah, 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 wasted a pick on a tackle that had to slide into guard and all that nonsense. We've went over how that's just kind of stupid. And if he can help this team out in any way his first year, let alone being a starter, I'm not going to gripe the fact of whether he's a left guard, right guard, whatever the case is. And as far as Sean Ryan goes, I have been pleasantly surprised thus far in the season, but it's preseason. We've had, Royce Newman, king of preseason, and all of a sudden he will leave a big old duty in your bed, Amber Heard style. So I just think
right on the old pillow. God, that's hilarious.
Oh, boy.
If you guys don't understand that reference, good for you. Okay, because I wish I didn't. But I want to highlight this part right here. It says instead of Morgan being listed as the number 1 right guard and Ryan the primary backup, Morgan and Ryan are listed as co-starters. You guys remember last season, it was John Runyon was the starter, and then all of a sudden Sean Ryan popped up and they were co-starters. They were rotating. It seems like they may continue that with Jordan Morgan and Sean Ryan here. I hope that's not the case. I would rather Jordan Morgan get out there and get settled in. But then again, man, you're getting some fresh legs out there, no different than a pass rusher. As long as it doesn't mess up the rhythm and the timing of the offense, and specifically the offensive line, and as long as there's not extra mental mistakes with the snap count, things like that, early movement, there's probably some value to having a fresh offensive lineman out there about, every other series or something. You know what I'm saying? So, again, I would like Morgan to just run away with it where we couldn't afford to get him off the field. But right now it does seem like they are co-starters. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do. There's a defensive side of this article as well. Since we're up against the gun here. Oh gosh, I said gun. Oh no. What's going to happen here on you? Anyway, we'll pick up in the morning with the defensive side of the ball. That sound good, Jake?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we'll do that. And again, you guys go give show Bill Huber some love over on Twitter. Again, this was the tweet. Retweet it out. Put in the comments if you want to. PTA just hit on some of this article. Awesome article. Just encourage him. He's a great writer. I love the work he does. Him and Paul Brettel are 2 of my favorites in the business for sure. So, all right. Also want to do this real quick and give a shout out to the Patreon group. It's growing like crazy. You can scan that QR code in the upper right if you want to join our Patreon community. I want to give a shout out to Dan Felger, T. Rattler, Jordan Taylor, Rizvo, Andrew Matson, and Pack Daddy. Pack Daddy actually joined too. It's funny, I'm a member of his Patreon group. He's a member of mine, so that's awesome. Just kind of supporting each other. So just want to give a shout out to everybody there who has recently joined the Patreon group. It's growing like crazy. I know we got a fantasy football league that's going to be cranking up here soon. We got a draft coming up. I'm sure it's right around the corner. Carly's heading that up, so you have an opportunity to enter. I think we got 1 or 2 spots left in that league as well, but also just exclusive content. We'll ask questions in there, and we've got a chat set up to where if you've got a question for the show, we try to work those into the show as well. But if you're interested in joining that community, like I said, you can scan that QR code or just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access, or just go to patreon.com and search Packer Fan Total Access. But we appreciate everybody supporting us in that regard too. It is kind of the lifeblood of what we do along with the podcast. Jacob, you got anything else as we wrap this thing up, man?
Yeah, just got to clean up comment that I made. I don't know what I was thinking. I said something like Jacobs has never had over a certain amount of pass catches. He's gotten consistently, like, let's see, 2020 he had 33, 21, 54, 22, 53, and 2023 he had 37. I think what I was maybe trying to say is that he has never cracked 500 yards receiving, and there was some stat that I think it was like the only 5 of the catches weren't basically out of the backfield. So he wants to be more of like actually wants to run routes. He said he did a lot more in Alabama, but he has been used a little bit more, quite a bit more than what I said in the passing game when he was in Vegas there. But never once surpassed more than 400 yards receiving. So I know that that's something that we could definitely increase for him.
Yeah, and that was the big thing coming out of college. I don't think you spoke completely out of pocket. I knew what you were saying, but I respect the hell out of the fact that you wanted to clean that up. And I need to be better at that because I made several mistakes on the last show we did. We're just a couple Packer fans talking ball, guys. We suck. This show sucks, and we know it, but we're going to continue to try to get better. But I think I've heard everyone speaking this offseason that they did not utilize him the way they should have in the passing game. So I think you're spot on with that. And I think LaFleur is chomping at the bit to get to that, no doubt. So just want to mention this. We mentioned the roster cut down date earlier. The actual final cut day is August 27th, 10 days from today. Okay. And then, of course, September 4th, all contracts must fit within each team's salary cap. So you kind of button up the 2024 salary cap, everyone who's on the roster on September 4th. And then, of course, September 5th will be NFL opening night, the Ravens and the Chiefs there at Arrowhead. I'm sure they'll be having their ring ceremony, all that good stuff. Unveiling of their banner. So final cut down day, though, is the 27th. It's going to be here in the blink of an eye. We'll have all your camp news, notes, updates, all that good stuff every step of the way. Now, tomorrow, what's on tap? We're going to go live at 8 a.m. Central Time. So if you find yourself up early on that Sunday morning, grab you a cup of coffee. We'll be in here with Bedhead, hanging out, talking a little ball. We'll finish that article that we just started, and we'll dive into some other stuff. And then tomorrow evening, 1 hour before kickoff. It's kickoff 7 p.m. Central Time, right, Jacob? Am I thinking right?
Yes.
Okay, so at 6 p.m. Central Time, we will go live for the PTA pregame show, and we'll be bringing you live shots from the stadium, any kind of updated information we may or may not have. All that will be happening on the pregame show. And then I think Pack Daddy might be doing a live stream. I'll double check with him during the game if you want to play.
He said he was as of this morning. So
okay, cool. So you guys can hop over there as soon as our pregame show ends, hang out with them, watch the show live. He's had a couple guests pop in and out, which is really cool. And then as soon as the game wraps up, we'll be going live for the postgame show. So essentially, we're going to be between PTA and Packernet tomorrow. It might as well be a cable channel TV or a cable TV channel. You know, we're going to be basically live all day long. Pretty cool. So,
yeah, I saw right before we went live, I saw Ryan was about to hop on earlier today. He was asking for any and all basically snippets, screenshots, clips of people that were basically praying to the one and only God Messiah that is Caleb Williams. So it sounds like he's about midway into a very epic Ryan rant, which I'll have to check out because that's my favorite Ryan is when he is ranting about the Bears.
No doubt about it. And if you guys want to check his podcast out, because he doesn't do everything on YouTube, right? Most of his stuff is exclusive to the podcast. You can scan that QR code in the upper right. That'll send you to Packernet Podcast, wherever you get your podcast, whatever platform you use. You can also find this show on there as well. If you find yourself away from YouTube and you want to listen to the podcast form, this show goes, as soon as we wrap up here, I'll have it up within 15 or 20 minutes. It'll be live on our podcast network. Also, Jake Shavink does the It's Always Draft Season podcast on there as well. Kind of gives you a Packer fan's perspective on the upcoming draft and some of the college prospects, things like that. So keep that in mind too. Again, just scan that QR code or just go to your favorite platform and search Packernet Podcast, Packernet podcast. So there you go. All right, we're out. We'll see you guys and gals tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Central Time. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.